Night, episode 11. We talking about our guest for tonight is Mr. Frederick Wilson. He's gonna share his journey. He's gonna talk about, man, how he went from Supermax prison to Supermax purpose. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you very much, and I really apologize for them technical difficulties. My name is Frederick Wilson. I'm 61, and I haven't always lived healthy and wealthy on the right side of the law. For many years, I was a career criminal and didn't see any reason to change. The raping that I received wasn't in my behind, but the raping I received growing up was always in my mind that what's wrong with what you're doing? And I began to live that type of life. I saw church people living that life, golfers living that life, soccer moms living that life. So what's wrong with what you're doing? You have to make a living. So I just continued to live that life until I had an awakening.
All right. So what was that awakening?
Well, actually, it came one day at prison. I was arrogant. I was financially well off, and I had been in maximum security so many times I was no longer afraid. I've seen the guards grow up, and I've seen preachers and pastors come in and out of prison. I saw lawyers and police officers we sold our dope to. So one day I'm on the yard, and my son was in another prison, and one of the guys got word to me that your son has been incarcerated and he's got about 5 years to do. And at that particular time that I received that word, some young guy started running and he jumped on the fence, and they told everybody to halt. Because normally when someone jump on the fence, they give him a back shot, but they gave this particular guy a shot in his leg. And as I looked over the camp, I saw all that green grass, but there were thousands of men lined up on their way to chow or coming back from chow. And it was at that moment I knew that I had allowed myself to get caught up in something. Here's a maternity ward giving birth to the same thing generation after generation. And for so many years, I had made excuses, and I said, well, I see preachers and bankers and golfers. But at that point, I had to take accountability and responsibility for the consequences of my decisions and quit blaming it on somebody else. And, well, if I don't do it, somebody else gonna do it. But I saw at that moment a maternity ward. I no longer saw a prison, but I saw a maternity ward that was giving birth for generations after generations. Just condemnation, the same thing over and over again, uncles and nephews and fathers and sons. And at that moment, I began to reach for a metamorphosis. I went back in my cell and I became very transparent, which has been the key to my success. I said, okay. Jesus, I don't love you or your mama Mary. I don't love me or my mama. I love lemon juice, crack, and a syringe, because I think I'm smart. I'm not gonna smoke crack in a pipe. I'm gonna put lemon juice on it and shoot in my arm so I can still be smooth out here. And man, at that point, I got transparent with Christ, and I began to tell him the truth. I don't love you or your mama Mary. I don't love me or my mama. I need to learn how to love myself. I need something more than a change. I need a metamorphosis. I need to begin to get introduced to somebody I never met before. And see, I've always known Fast Freddy. That's who the street called me. I've always known Little Ricky. That's who my mama used to call me. But I never knew Frederick. and I began to dig deeper. I spent hours to get to know my God. I spent hours to learn how to play my favorite sport, but I never spent any time, nor has anyone told me to spend time to get to know and get introduced to the most important person in the world. And that's Frederick, the guy deep down inside of you who you were born to be. And what's your purpose? And man, that was my turnaround when I got on that journey to learn my purpose, which means the original ideal for you. And it really changed my life at that point. I didn't get out right away. It was maybe a year or so before I got out. But my whole thinking began to change, not my geographic, because I knew I didn't need my geographic to change. I needed my character to change. And my character began to change where I had the roots of my problem, and that was in my thinking.
Right.
So yeah, that was in my thinking, and I began to change my thinking at that point.
All right. So you said you begin to change your thinking, but you said you didn't get out right away. It was probably about a year or so later before you got out. So in between the time that you changed your thinking and you got out, what was you doing to prepare yourself for your release?
Well, my perspective, I I was going to life skill classes, and my perspective about life skill classes in preparation to get out changed on my own. I knew I no longer needed inspiration and motivation in order to get the metamorphosis that I want. I teach that now in my class, these sweatshirts I had up, metamorphosis. In order to get the metamorphosis that I wanted, I had to begin to seek empowerment. In the life skill classes, they tell you, well, you know, it's going to be rough out there. You're going into, you're exiting back into society. You have 53 felons, 30 felony convictions. You have a violent background. It's going to be rough out there. And just remember, tell people you made a mistake, look them in the eyes, shake their hand, and you got to get you a job. But I began to seek empowerment. And the difference with seeking empowerment is I knew I was valuable. I knew I was a solution. I knew I was worth it. And that's not being grandiose. So I stopped looking for a job and I started looking for a problem. See, I'm not the problem to a being a beautician or a bank teller, but I am a problem to truck driving and loading a truck. So when I went into this company, I looked the guy in the eye and said, my name is Frederick Wilson, and I'm the solution to your problem. He said, young man, I don't have a problem. I said, sir, you need someone that can pass a urinalysis. You need someone that's strong enough that can load and unload their truck. You need someone that has chauffeur license that's able to drive that truck in Johnson and Jackson County. He said, well, man, I'm looking at your app. You're at least 50. I'm 61 now. You're about 50 years old. I don't know if you can do this. I say, sir, I'm a solution to your problem because I can outwork the average 18-year-old. I'm stronger and better shape than they are. So that gave birth to a different type of conversation with me and the human resource director. He began to look at me different, even when he found out I had a prison record, because I empowered him. He began to look at his situation different. That as I was leaving the office, he said, you know what? You interviewed me. I didn't interview you. He said, man, you're valuable. Never let someone tell you you're not. So those are kind of things I began to do before I left prison. I began to look at money as a tool, not as an object in order to increase my self-worth. Because when we were in the world, we had so much self-hatred and self-sabotage and self-defeating attitude. We thought money and cars and clothing and titles build our self-worth. But before I left prison, I did more reading and I found out money was a tool. And see, that attitude came with me out of prison into the recovery culture and the church culture. When I got in the church culture and the recovery culture, I started looking at, well, my self-worth will be about something if I take my license and become a preacher. Well, my self-worth will be about something once I get clean time in the recovery community and I can tell them that I'm a counselor and I have all these years clean. Not understanding that your self-worth is based on the content of your character, not what labels you carry. Am I a licensed counselor today in the state of Missouri for substance abuse? Yes. Am I a ordained reverend? Yes. But those labels no longer give birth to the building my self-image, but is that people know when they look at me or when they think of my name, they think of one word: integrity. They don't think about reverend, because all reverends don't have integrity. They don't think about licensed counselor, because all licensed counselors don't have integrity. And that's what I want people to think about, that one word: integrity. Especially now, we're living in a dispensation that no human being has ever lived in. I mean, we got over 400,000 people that have died so far of COVID, and then with what us as Black men are experiencing with the police officers. So it's so imperative that you know who you are, and that's something I worked on before I left prison. I knew that my identity could not be restricted to my skin color, and I'm proud to be a Black man. My identity could not be restricted to uh, Christ. My identity could not be restricted to just I'm in recovery, or my last name is Wilson. I had to dig deep down inside and see what Jesus Christ has put down inside of me, because I had to take the restrictions off. I don't want to be restricted to just a particular denomination. Even though our church is involved in a denomination, I preach and teach everywhere. I didn't want to just be restricted to just NA. I want to be able to share the message anywhere I go. I didn't want to just be restricted to just the Black culture. I sponsor and I mentor Black and white Indian guys, so straight and gay. So I didn't want to just be restricted to just a particular culture. But my focus now is what can I do to build men? And that's the greatest thing in the programs that I participate in. And that's building strong men, to let them know, man, you can be a homeowner, you can be a millionaire, you can go back to school. So when I go and speak different places, I just don't leave with a come to Jesus talk. I just don't leave with a you need to come to NA and save your life. But I let them know, if you need a job, take my number and I can help you get a job. If you're interested in finding somewhere to rent, don't believe the hype that felons can't find somewhere to rent. If you want to go to school, I know where some grants are. So it's so important that we empower people rather than just sharing them, giving them information, but they need some empowerment.
So what was the journey like, that from you getting out of prison to where you at now? What was that journey like? What was the obstacles that came into play? How you transitioned education-wise to end up getting and becoming a counselor? What was that journey like?
It was very painful. There's two types of pain. There's the pain when you damage yourself. I broke my ankle 2 years ago, and that was very painful. 2 years later, I work out, but I'm still feeling that pain. It's called recovery pain. So that journey was very painful. There was family members that I had to cut loose. There was so-called members of my congregation, church folk. There was folk that was involved in my home group that I had to cut loose, that poverty mentality, that restriction mentality. That there was folk that told me to just be satisfied that, hey, listen, you know you should have been in the gas chamber. One case was self-defense, the other one they caught you dead to right. Just be thankful. You need to slow down. You're moving too fast. Man, I had to learn the concept of what it means to love yourself. I had to start dating me. I had to date me. I had to fall in love with me. I had to get to know me. When you come home from prison, you're horny. You want a woman to just have sex with. So I had to get a mentor that I could be transparent with. Hey, man, I got to deliver my mind from masturbation. I didn't mess with the boys, but I sold the books. I had plenty of books. So now that I'm coming home, making that transition back into society, I got to get my mind right. And I got to do more than read positive books and go to school. I got to clean my mind. We have two minds. We have a conscious and a subconscious. That subconscious is where we store stuff. And I had filled that subconscious up with all types of pictures in these books when I was masturbating. So I had to clean my mind, and I had to be able to talk about that with men. And I have men around me that are mentors that are stronger than me and smarter than me all throughout the country, Texas, Florida, California, St. Louis, and men like you that have accomplished so much. But you're able to be transparent and talk about this without being religious. Oh, it's under the blood. No, it ain't. It's under the rug, player. So I had to begin to communicate this because I wanted more than just a woman. I wanted more than just a wife. I knew I needed a queen, my rib. I needed a business partner. I needed somebody I could spar. So I needed more than just somebody to have sex with and all these old crazy thoughts. So I had to first clean my mind. That transition was me learning the importance of falling in love with myself, learning the importance that there was a book I read coming home by Joyce Myers. It was called The Addiction of Approval. And that book really ushered me somewhere I've never been before. I began to see myself the way God saw me because I didn't know I was addicted to people pleasing. And in the street, we called it reputation. So you got 5 years for shooting that man in the leg at your car wash because you was worried about what the fellas thought. You know, he didn't owe you, but he owed you under $200 for a little dope. So you're going to shoot him in the leg knowing he's a family man with a job that he's going to pay you. So that trip coming home, man, it began to usher me into learning who I was and what was my purpose here on the earth. And that one of my number one purposes was to build strong men and to let them know that their number one goal is not to go to heaven, but your number one goal is to bring heaven here on earth. And man, I've had so many phone calls this week about going to these prayer vigils. Hey, yeah, we need you to come and pray so we can stop the killing. And it wasn't until I just finally told them, hey man, I'm not getting involved in that stupidity. They supposed to kill each other. When you out there in the world and you selling dope and you hustling, that's what you supposed to do. If you don't kill, somebody gonna kill you. So other words, my point is I had to live in reality. I had to learn what it means to live in my Clark Kent and not always live in my Superman. And the reality is,
we was talking about that the other day. Explain to the viewers what you mean when you say lived in your Clark Kent.
especially us as men. Us as men, women are more communicative about what's going on with them on the inside. But us as men, we don't want to be transparent. I, Even in the Bible, Jesus said, let this cup pass me by. In other words, I don't want to feel this pain. But then he come back and said, nevertheless, come on with it. So it's imperative that I go to Mr. Kardell and say, hey, man, I'm struggling right now with this issue that I'm going through, and I feel like quitting. I'm sick of this mess, man. It hurts. I'm struggling with this, man. However, he know me well enough to know that, man, this guy, Frederick, is just transparent, but he ain't nowhere near quitting. So we have to be able to communicate. I don't care how many churches I pastor. I don't care how many men I mentor, how many millions of dollars I get in the bank, how many companies I open. My strength will always come from being transparent, talking about my Clark Kent. Because, see, you will always have a Clark Kent, but that Clark Kent ought to grow. Issues I dealt with last year, I'm not going to deal with them issues this year. But you
Right.
will always have some issues. So your Clark Kent is the part of you that people don't see, because there's always two of you. There's a Frederick and then there's a Frederick. I hear people say, well, you know, man, I don't want to lose my religion, or you don't want my addiction to come back. See, all that's dead. Fast Freddy and Little Ricky, they dead. But even the adult, mature Frederick has a weak side. And it's no excuse, because now I have power to identify that weak side and say, no, hold on, playboy. We can ready to go talk to Mr. Kardell. We can ready to go call somebody in St. Louis, or your partner in Texas. We can ready to address this issue. So, you know, so
so how did you start getting in the position of counseling and the substance abuse counseling? Because you know, we might have somebody that's out right, that just got out today. You know what I'm saying? They saying, I want to get myself together, then I want to end up being a substance abuse counselor and helping with people that dealt with some issues that I've been through. What steps should I go about doing that? Like, what steps did you take in going about doing that?
in the state of Missouri, there's an organization called Missouri Credentialing Board. And I want to submit that I did not qualify. I don't have rapes or messing with kids, but I have a lot of violent crimes. I have 30 felony convictions. And I didn't get them felony convictions because I was dumb and stupid and didn't know how to do it. But I got them because, number one, I wouldn't tell. Oh, you won't tell? Well, we're going to give you some more. Well, come on with it. And bring your mama with you. I didn't care. And I got them because it was a way of life. So here I am going to the Missouri Credentialing Board with all these felonies. And the Missouri Credentialing Board, Frederick, you do not qualify. But from the time I got out, I volunteered at places like Salvation Army. I volunteered for the head commissioner of Jackson County Drug Court, Judge David Fryer. I volunteered, I'm still a volunteer at Kansas Department of Corrections. So they wrote letters for me. I'm a certified mentor since I've come home, and that was almost 9 years ago, at Kansas Department of Corrections in their maximum security department. So they wrote letters for me, and I took them letters to the state of Missouri, because it wasn't the Missouri Credentialing Board, because they feel like I feel, you are perfect for the job. And I began to take the necessary tests and do the necessary studying that I had to do. And now I see an avenue that I need to grow even more, because I came out and I'm still excited and gung-ho about Christ. And I was given the opportunity to get more and more licensed in the ministry field. But man, God put it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. I am a licensed reverend, but my God put it in my spirit that you need to grow more in your counseling, working with mental health as well as substance abuse. So I would say contact the credentialing board of the state that you live in and be transparent. I didn't hide nothing with them. I couldn't name all 53 felons, so I just went and got a police report. I went to the FBI and they took my fingerprint and they did a thorough background, and it's gonna cost, but I'm at a point now where I'm not ashamed. I regret it because it hurt a lot of people. There were 3 marriages, 3 divorces, 7 children. So it hurt a lot of people. However, now it's an asset because guys that are in my groups, guys that are on my job, whenever they tell me, man, I got 5 felons, I can't get a job, Mr. Wilson. I just overdosed. Man, I can't get a place to stay. I got 2 felons. I said, well, that's not true. I guarantee you, I could guarantee anybody listening, and it's not me, I could guarantee you you can get a job. I could guarantee you that you can open up a business. My wife and I are about to open up 2 businesses. I could guarantee you, man, we used to get drugs to sell with no money. We used to tell the man, we have your money in 9 days. And we had already set up a sale for that ounce. Man, so how come we can't use that same tenacity, that same innovativeness, and just turn it around and use it for the good of us and the good to help thousands of others?
Right. Yeah, true indeed. So I remember you saying the other day when we was in the group, you said only what you reveal can be healed. So with that being said, when you know, in prison we see a lot of things. Even before we went to prison, being in that life, you see a lot of things that, you know, the average person, it's just not normal to, you know what I'm saying, to the average person. We adapted to be normal because we've been in it so long. So even in prison, so it's a lot of things that you deal with mentally that you need to reveal so it can be healed. And the way by doing that is addressing your mental health.
Right.
Why is it important, especially, you know, you in the field, why is it important that that's a must that you address your mental health coming out of prison?
Here's a book that I've been reading. I'm teaching on it, Wounded Boys. And when I first saw it, and it says heroic men, I see a therapist now today for post-traumatic stress disorder. And I've been told by different people at church, man, you don't need to see no therapist, man. We heard you speak, man. You're awesome, man. You got Jesus. You don't need to see no therapist. I say, man, we all need to see a therapist. But I know I need to see a therapist. And now I don't see him as frequent as I did when I first came home. And I began to see a therapist prior to getting out, because there was many things that I saw and that I was involved in that's not normal. I mean, you think because you went to Vietnam and saw a kid arm chopped off, or you've been through cancer, but there's things that we experience, especially as Black men. Things that you experience, because what we see in the day because of the cell phone, I saw in the 60s and 70s. But nobody talked about it because there was no cell phone. And if it wasn't for me having a strong Army Sergeant dad named J.W. Wilson, I would have been a coward. But I've seen my father make us come to the window, and he would go outside and deal with 5 white guys that wanted us out of that suburban neighborhood. So the things I saw in prison, that mental health piece is so important. And unfortunately, many kingdom kids see it, but a lot of church folks don't see it. It's talked about in the Bible when Paul said we must renew our mind. He was talking about bringing theology and psychology on the same accord. Man, the reason I got to renew my mind messed up. I remember I first came home, and I came home in the end of 12, right at 2013. I got married in 16. And this gentleman at the church I was attending then said something real derogatory regarding my wife, and I just looked at him and I said to myself, he don't know I just gave him a pass.
Right.
And God was showing me how I was renewing my mind. And I invited him to another event that we was having. He said, man, you gonna invite me? And I was learning the importance, and that's one of the greatest things I learned in therapy, how to forgive. Forgiveness is not for someone else. The word forgive means to release. And I have been studying how things that go on in your mind psychologically can affect your physical body and give birth to a lot of sickness. So I have learned the skill of forgiveness. Now, that doesn't mean I won't stand up somewhere and speak out. I'll speak out in church. I'll speak out at job, anywhere. That doesn't mean that I won't stand for what's right. But I have learned how to forgive. I have learned how to release resentment. I have learned because it's for me. That word forgive means to release. Why am I holding on to that stuff? Release it and allow something else to come in. Because, man, one of the greatest lessons that I have learned in the Bible is right before Jesus got ready to leave, he told his disciples, you will be offended. But if you are not mature enough to learn how to manage offense, you're not mature enough to do a global worldwide work. And man, we wasn't small on the street. We might have started off on a corner, and I'm not glorifying the stupidity, but we ended up in a Ritz-Carlton. And what I see now is doing some global work for God. I see myself working with, I don't care if you're Hindu, Muslim, black, white, young, old, straight. If you want some help, I want to work with you. I want to know
Right.
what I can do to help you. And so that working with your psychic, man, that mental health is so important. We're having a mentor, having enough of humility and enough of maturity to know that you need to be sitting with a therapist. And I'm telling you, man, I have experienced more people I respect as counselors and pastors who have killed themselves because of the stress. I
Wow.
mean, just here recently, and we can't blame it on COVID. When I first got my license, and I won't name, but someone I respected here in Kansas City killed himself because of stress. And then a pastor associate that was financially well off, very educated, 10,000 members in St. Louis. And that told me to focus on what's bothering you. Talk to people. See, only what you reveal can be healed. When you begin to speak a thing up out of your mouth, that takes the power away from it. And so many times we as men, oh, nothing's bothering me, man. I just got through working out with Frederick. I'm okay. No, man. Uh, I work out now for the right reason, not because I'm trying to get something off my mind,
Right.
and not because I'm trying to look good, but I know I have to live. Man, at 61, I'm in better shape than an 18-year-old, and God gets the praise. But I got to live a long time because there's work I owe. I owe, and it's not in my conversation. When when I do a group on Sunday mornings at this treatment center I go to, I volunteer at the treatment center, and I go, and it's not called a church service, it's called an empowerment meeting. And I have
Right.
men and women in the congregation. And because men and women are in the congregation, I said the purpose are in the crowd. And the purpose of this is for results. I don't come just to rap or to impress you all, but I come to empower you. So when they come back, Mr. Wilson, that worked. I got a job. Mr. Wilson, that worked. I got an apartment. Mr. Wilson, you're right. I am worth it. I am valuable. And see, the women know that I'm not trying to get in their panties. I have integrity with them. The men know I'm not trying to set them out and hustle them and see what's in their wallet. Man, that is so important with my psychic, with my mental health. The greatest thing with my mental health is to know that I'm practicing integrity. And does that mean I don't make mistakes and do wrong? No. But man, in a minute, I don't mind saying, hey, Mr. Kardell, I messed up, man. I need some help. How do I figure this out? And you're right, that mental health is so important.
So I got one last question. Somebody's getting out today. They entering society right now. They're getting out. They got this journey ahead of them. What is one thing that you would tell them? What is one advice that you would give them?
There's
I'm getting out tomorrow. I'm about to take this, getting out of prison. I'm about to get on this re-entry journey. What advice can you give me? To somebody who's been through it.
One thing I just recently shared was there's two types of people in prison. There's two types of people in recovery. The kind that got caught up and is looking for a way out. And if they ever find a way out, they like the Commodores, they gonna zoom. There's another type that have got caught up and they like the way I used to be. They have made it a way of life. And I asked that individual, I said, which one are you? And the guy said, well, man, I'm like you, Mr. Wilson. I want to zoom. I want to be like an eagle and keep flying. I don't want to be like no chicken just clacking. I want to be like an eagle and keep flying. I said, well, okay. What work? How much work are you able to put forth? Oh man, I can work. I worked in the print shop, in the laundry, in prison. I said, no. What type of work are you willing to do on yourself? When I first got out, I went to Salvation Army. It was a 6-month program. I stayed for 9 months. I had some options. I have actually 4 grown daughters. 2 had extended the invitation to come to one of their homes, beautiful homes. And I mean, we keep it real. We pen paling women. I said, but and most guys, when they get out, they want to go to Minneapolis. That's the best place for an inmate, for a convict that want to come up. So my advice would be to know which person are you. Have you made this a way of life, or are you serious about putting in some work? And then before I got out, I made a connection with the outside. Before I got out, I spent a lot of time writing different companies and agencies and non-for-profit agencies. And once I made a connection, I had somebody, that's how I got hooked up with Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center. I made a connection with some outside facilities that were convict friendly. And by doing that, I was able to tie in with a facility. I wasn't just out there wondering, what should I do and where should I go? And it's not going to be something you always want to do, but I knew I needed that, not just that structure, but I needed that networking station. That's why I stayed there 9 weeks and went straight into my apartment.
Right.
So my advice would be, number one, find out which person are you. Number two, make some connections with the outside on what you want to be. And then thirdly, begin to fall in love with yourself. Start dating yourself in prison, man. Spend some time in that cell with a pen and paper, man. Go on the yard and run and talk to yourself. Hey, man, tell the truth. I remember when I had that conversation, Frederick, tell the truth. What do you really want to do in life? Tell the truth. Okay, you done proved yourself All right, you got a couple swollen eyes, a couple scars. You like to box, play ball. You don't have no tattoos. You wouldn't become GD, Vice Lord. You a man. You improve that. Now, what do you want to do in life? And man, be transparent. Be transparent. Don't lie to yourself. If this is the way, I can't tell you how many guys, they wanted me to stop a guy from leaving the facility Friday, and I wouldn't. I asked the young man, is it something I can help you with? And he said, no, I want to leave. I said, well, sir, there's the door. Is there something I can do to help you pack? You need a Uber? You Be real with yourself. It's no more time for playing with grown folk. No more babying. Oh man, Jesus love you. Okay, well go find Jesus, because man, it's time out for babying you, playboy. So I had to
Right.
talk to myself like that. I had to talk to myself like that. Come on, man, get up off your knees praying, and you need to get on that yard and run. Stop smoking them cigarettes. Stop eating all them Debbie's at night. Start getting your health together. So that's some advice that I would give somebody. Uh, we want to
Right.
pray for, yeah.
So you said, so you talking about, what I'm saying, get to know which person you are. You know, on top of that, you make some connections, right? And you was talking about, being real with yourself.
Yes.
These are three most important things that you want to get to the person that's getting out. Like, look, this is what you need to do. You got to figure out which person you're gonna be. You're gonna be the one that's want to take off on the Zoom. You know what I'm saying? You want to go for higher heights, or you want to be connected and tied with the streets. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Because you've got to know one. Because if you don't know which person you want to be, then you ain't even gonna make it, because
Right.
you ain't
Right.
figured out which one you want to do. So you got to be locked down on which one you're gonna be. So yeah,
Right.
I really agree with that. I really appreciate you tapping in with us, coming in, sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience, sharing your journey that you laid down, that you did, and that you are doing. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a lot that's opening up for you on top of the lot that's opening up for you right now, because of your experience, and people need to hear the realness. People need to hear what you got to give, what you got to offer, because like you said, I'm not here to inspire or motivate you. I'm here to make some changes. I'm here to make some actions. I'm here to make something happen. And that's a lot of things that a lot of people don't understand. I feel the same way. Like, I don't want my story to motivate you or inspire you. I want to see some change happen. We got to
Right.
start making change. We got to quit being inspired and motivated. And then 30 minutes later, we not inspired and motivated no more. We need to start putting this work in. We need to start making the changes, whether it's within yourself or whether it's out in using what you got, your purpose, to build change and make change in other people. So I most definitely agree with that. I mean, agree with everything you said, man. I appreciate that you coming on again to the Reentry Journey podcast. I know we had some technical difficulties, but it don't matter what platform it's on. Knowledge is knowledge, and it needs to be put out there. I wish you the best in everything that you do from this point on. When anything that I can help out with or assist with, don't be afraid to send me a message or hit me up.
Okay, I will. I will. I'll
And
be in St. Joseph sometime.
yeah, and so yeah, don't be just hit me up. Again, thanks a lot for coming on as a guest. I appreciate you. I salute you, King, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. You are an inspiration. This is what's needed, especially after the president signed that bill to release brothers with those low crimes, and you got thousands of men and women exiting back in society. So I really compliment you for your boldness, man. We have learned how to do recovery and church, but we haven't learned how to do life. And
Right.
what you're doing is so awesome. I'm telling you, it's needed. I don't see convicts and inmates. I see, man, homeowners and entrepreneurs and fathers and mothers, and I mean people like Jennifer Wolf, who you had on her, my coworker, man. She is absolutely awesome, man, with her her children and on the job. So I just compliment you for the door that you have opened to do what is really needed to help those that need the help to become who they really are.
Right. But thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. Like I said, anytime, man, reach out to me. Any way I can help, or we can meet up. We can put some events together, whatever. I'm always down. If I got the time, I'm available. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Once again, this is the Reentry Journey, episode 11, with my brother, Mr. Frederick Wilson. We talking about going from Supermax prison to Supermax purpose. That's what it's all about, understanding and knowing your purpose, knowing you, and sharing your gift with the world. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you again, Mr. Frederick, man, for being on the podcast. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.